We're so excited for this evening. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this important forum with candidates to represent Santa Clara County District 1 on the County Board of Supervisors. My name is Regina Celestin Williams, and I am the Executive Director of SB at Home and the SB at Home Action Fund. And we are proud to be hosting this forum tonight. We would like to remind everyone that SB at Home works for a future where all Santa Clara County residents have a safe, stable, and affordable home, and that the Board of Supervisors constituents include all county residents, both housed and unhoused. So I ask everyone to be respectful of that. And before we begin, I'd like to take another moment to thank and appreciate our co-host this evening. Our forum tonight is co-hosted by a group of amazing partners, the Black Leadership Kitchen Cabinet, the Billy DeFrank LGBTQ+ Community Center, California YIMBY, Destination Home, the Greenbelt Alliance, Housing Choices Coalition, the Law Foundation of Silicon Valley, Lead Filipino, Momentum for Health, the San Jose Silicon Valley NAACP chapter, Silicon Valley Community Foundation, Silicon Valley Council of Nonprofits, South Bay YIMBY, South County Compassion Center, Student Homeless Alliance, Streets for People, United Way Bay Area, Urban Environmentalists, the Vietnamese American Roundtable, and YIMBY Action. We're so grateful to all of our co-hosts. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for tonight's forum, Gabriel Greschler, reporter for the Mercury News. Welcome, Gabriel.
Thank you very much, Regina. Tonight, we're honored to be joined by 4 candidates for Santa Clara County Supervisorial District 1. Our candidates tonight are Sylvia Arenas, Rich Constantine, Denelle Fedor, and Claudia Rossi. A 5th candidate, Johnny Camus, had accepted an invitation to participate in early March. However, 24 hours ago, he notified the organizers of tonight's forum that he would not be participating. Let's review the rules and expectations of this forum. We'll hear an opening statement from each candidate. Then we'll move into a Q&A discussion with some long answer questions and some rapid fire questions. Finally, we'll hear a closing statement from each candidate. The candidates have seen the questions ahead of time. For each question, time will be limited, and the time limits will be strictly enforced. Candidates have been asked to not critique, respond to, or engage with their fellow candidates during the forum. There will not be an opportunity for rebuttals. Candidates have been asked to keep comments focused on the issues, the job, the county, and District 1, and themselves, their experience, approach, and ideas. All candidates will have an opportunity to answer each question. To begin, each candidate will share a 1-minute opening statement. Sylvia, would you start us off, please?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sylvia Arenas. I'm currently a council member for the city of San Jose and a native to our city. My parents come from Mexico, and as an immigrant daughter, I've learned to the principle of service, and that's really where I'm coming from in my campaign. I'll be focused on children and families, on recovery, making sure that recovery works for everyone, as well as homeless issues that plague our city. Lastly, I just want to make sure I note that I have a track record. I've been working on policy through this pandemic that has really impacted all of us, has exacerbated a lot of the issues that we already know were true within our work, but now they're just really apparent, and we must not ignore them. We must work together. I'm a collaborator, and I would love to have your support and your vote in this upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Rich?
Great. Thank you very much for the opportunity this evening. I really appreciate it. Thank you. My name is Rich Constantine, and I am the mayor of Morgan Hill. I have also served on the council since 2010, and I've been elected twice to the position of mayor since 2018. I can tell you that of my many accomplishments, my most important is being the father of a 6-year-old and being the husband of a first responder. As a 25-year retired now veteran of the San Jose Fire Department, I've seen firsthand what it is for people to suffer and how it is that people use a 911 system to avail themselves of health needs. And I've also seen the devastation of being unhoused. As mayor of Morgan Hill, and as if I'm blessed to be supervisor, I will continue to use that empathy and the work that I've done in the city of Morgan Hill to make sure that those needs are met.
Thank you very much, Rich.
And it goes fast.
Thank you very much, Rich. Denelle?
Hi, thank you everyone for being here and for all of the organizers. I know this is not an easy task to organize this evening. My name is Denelle Fedor. I am a candidate for District 1. I do feel that I'm the most qualified, and I'll share a little bit about my background. My family is from the east side of San Jose. That is where I was born. My parents were high school sweethearts from Overfelt. I'm the first woman in my family to graduate from college. I'm one of 35 cousins. I am the only Republican running for this seat. I have worked for 4 different elected officials, both Ken Yeager, a Democrat, Pat Dando, a Republican, and I've worked on housing issues and development issues, specifically in San Jose. I'm also a former rape crisis counselor and a current case manager. I understand working and how important it is working with people during times of crisis. I'm looking forward to sharing that experience if I am elected as the next county supervisor.
Thank you very much, Denelle. Claudia?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with all of you about these issues. I am the only candidate in this race that has been elected to countywide office. I am also the daughter of immigrant parents, and I'm very proud to share with all of you that I am a chronic disease management nurse who chose to work for a nonprofit in order to serve the needs of migrant families and families living in poverty, many of whom face the issues that we will discuss today. I am proud to share with you that I am also the candidate that has been endorsed by more current and former county supervisors. In my everyday life, I come into contact with people who are suffering from homelessness and from deep poverty. I look forward to answering your questions, and I also want to greet my fellow candidates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Moving into our main Q&A section, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question. For our first question, we're going to turn to one of tonight's co-hosts, Destination Home. Mike Eckhart is a member of Destination Home's Lived Experience Advisory Board, and he will be asking the question. Mike?
Thank you very much. Good evening, candidates. How are you? Question is, we all know that thousands of county residents sleep outside or outdoors every night, setting up tents or erecting temporary shelters of their own. The struggles of displaced individuals or persons living unsheltered are particularly severe in Gilroy. Many housed neighbors complain about encampments on a daily basis, but homeless residents typically have nowhere to go. How do you navigate this issue between homeless residents and housed neighbors? And what is your plan to tackle homelessness as a whole?
Thank you very much, Mike. Claudia?
Thank you so much. One of the things that I feel strongly we need to do is engage every municipality in our county, including the community college and school district community, Due to declining enrollment, schools are being closed, and those facilities can very easily serve to house our unsheltered brothers and sisters. I also think that we could definitely engage with the faith community. South County has a faith council, interfaith council that would be very engaged in addressing the sheltering issues that our South County residents face. And so I believe that strengthening those partnerships will be important. I also think that the county needs to assess and make sure that lands that are available to contribute to the housing crisis need to be prioritized. And I will make a point of doing that as the supervisor.
Thank you. Rich?
Well, thank you very much. You know, a city and a county must make a commitment at the highest level of leadership to work together and support one another to make significant impact on this issue. Some cities are making more progress than others, but all have the capacity and the capability to choose to do the hard work and to listen to the families that are experiencing homelessness. The only way to make significant progress on ending homelessness is to create housing opportunities everywhere at all levels of affordability. We have two choices. We either build the houses or we don't. And if we don't choose to build the housing, then we're going to continue to see the third world conditions of tents and encampments that we are currently seeing. Sorry about that. I didn't silence my phone. We need to do a much better job, basically, and be bolder and wiser and work together. You know, we can't forget the huge role that the county plays, but we have to work together. We have to, cities have the land use authority, and we have to work with the county. And that's been the kind of the hallmark of my work as Mayor of Morgan Hills, working as a team.
Thank you. Sylvia?
Thank you for the question. It's really vital that our elected officials provide moral and compassionate leadership. And in Evergreen, the district that I represent, I've brought together neighbors, whether they live inside or outside. And this is in the Thompson Creek Neighborhood Association to find solutions that really are inclusive of our unhoused community. For example, we work together to deploy hygiene, support case management, and just a lot more. And really, the unhoused community does their part in cleaning up every weekend. But to really tackle homelessness at large, we have to make sure that we focus on three things. One, to continue to work on building more affordable housing. I don't think I have to say that to anybody. Implementing more compassionate solutions by really investing in our safety net, which is our mental health and public health system, as well as our health equity programs. And then to solve the broader housing crisis solutions, we all know this, these are the 3 Ps, and it is preservation, production, and protection.
Thank you. Denelle?
Hi, thank you for this question. You know, I have a little bit of a different take. I believe that chronically mentally ill population contributes a large percentage of the homeless population, and it's very sad, you know. And I want to see them receive the mental health care that they need and that they deserve. I support Governor Newsom's Care Court plan, which is looking at helping the mentally ill from a state perspective, from a statewide way, and giving the counties the mandate to do that, so that this transient population is cared for no matter where they are living. I definitely support housing. I've always been someone who has supported affordable housing developers and market rate developers. And I do think we need more housing for all people, but not just housing, but places where there's amenities as well, like healthcare and outside recreation.
Thank you very much. Question 2. COVID exacerbated housing affordability and instability for many county residents. Ongoing challenges include overcrowding, as well as high levels of rent burden, with a majority of lower income renters spending over 50% of their income on housing. How can the county prioritize affordable housing as part of economic recovery, especially now that other pandemic-related protections, like the eviction moratorium and rental assistance, have expired? Denelle?
So I'm happy that we're that COVID is somewhat in the rearview mirror, but I don't think that we're out of it yet. And only time will tell this next year. So I think we need to be prepared to help everybody during the next year, just in case COVID sneaks up on us again and affects people differently. We've seen that during the last 2 years. I do think that our city, that our state and our county did a good job with helping people, making sure that there was a rent moratorium. Unemployment, there was more money given during unemployment, sometimes more than what people were making at their jobs. I think it's important to help people learn about budgeting and utilizing the money they have in a way that is productive for them. And I don't want to see complete dependence for people. I also want people to be empowered with information and know how to manage their budget so that they're not in these positions of looking at eviction.
Thank you. Sylvia?
The reality is that there's too many families that are being forced out of our communities, and this is not the first time. We saw it in the last recession, and it's really out of control housing costs and the salary that really doesn't grow with this cost of living. If elected, I'm going to continue to fight tooth and nail on some of these issues, including, of course, affordable housing. Really, for me, the biggest impediment here is sometimes there's restrictions on zoning laws, and we really need to make sense of them. We have to make sure that the land use reform works for us. And I have been very passionate about some of these policies within the city council. We've made it much easier to build ADUs and duplexes. And on the Board of Supervisors, I would take the same approach in terms of looking at our options and making sure that we don't ignore what we have in front of us, like Measure A.
Thank you. Claudia?
A proposal that I am very excited to support if I'm elected to supervisor is caregiver housing. There's a proposal that would use county land to build housing for caregivers who offer a very valuable service and who are grossly underpaid. And this would serve to alleviate the housing crisis for caregivers that enable our elderly to stay at home, to remain in their communities. When you consider that by the year 2040, we will have over 1 million seniors in our community. So targeting housing that also solves other issues, such as addressing the housing crisis for caregivers, is something that I will be very excited to support, as well as programs that prevent homelessness in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich?
Thank you. The County of Santa Clara Office of Supportive Housing has an entire team and a work plan dedicated to this problem. They have made significant progress, but our challenge is that new people are continuing to fall into homelessness because it's just too expensive to live here. One example is an eviction diversion program that is being developed to address eviction based on non-payment while we're still in this COVID recovery period. This is something the county and San Jose is exploring right now. The county continues to fund many nonprofits and CBOs to provide the services that support our community. One that comes to mind, Law Foundation, has a small claims program that serves folks who live in Santa Clara County who are being sued by their landlord, and will help to pay for unpaid rent between March 2020 and March of this year. And this program like this is crucial to make sure that we help people as many as we can.
Thank you. For our next question, we're going to turn to another one of tonight's co-hosts, the South County Compassion Center. Tim Davis, Executive Director at the South County Compassion Center, will ask the question. Tim?
Thank you, Gabriel, and welcome all candidates. If you're elected, what specific steps would you take to make extremely low-income housing development a priority in South County? And would you bring along community members, and how would you bring along community members who may be opposed to deeply affordable housing? Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Sylvia?
On council, I've really worked to create new funding sources for affordable housing construction. We passed Measure E. We have passed a commercial linkage fee and an inclusionary housing ordinance impact in lieu fee. And so these funding sources in collaboration with County Measure A funding, they've created really a new pipeline for ELI housing construction in San Jose. And this is what's absolutely essential in part of ending homelessness, and especially ELI and addressing ELI. So when if the voters have me and I'm on the board, I'll bring community members along in the process of understanding how ELI really housing fits in the desire to see fewer members of our community living unsheltered in our streets. Folks are living next to us, whether it's outside. We really want to make sure that it is a compassionate place for everybody and that everybody has a place in our city.
Thank you. Denelle?
Thank you. Thank you for all your work that you're doing for the extremely low income. It's such a vulnerable and precious population, and I do believe that we need to be there and provide services for the most vulnerable. I'm a big community person, and for the people that I've worked for, and I'm the former president of the Santa Teresa Foothills Neighborhood Association, I think having community meetings, really informing people what extremely low income housing is, because I think the problem is the unknown. I think I'm the only one who owns a condo. I live across the street from Almaden Lake, and there's an incredibly beautiful affordable housing unit right next to me, 400 units. It's beautiful and it's managed very well. And I think that's the other component is really informing people what affordable housing is and how it's managed well. Because I think that's the fear. And once you combat that, you'll have more people wanting to buy in.
Thank you. Rich?
I'm unmuted. Yeah, no, that's something that we've been very good at here in Morgan Hill. In fact, since 1977, we've had a growth control measure. And what that growth control measure allowed us to do was to be able to incorporate housing in our affordable housing in our entire neighborhood. You can't just point to one neighborhood or one project and say, oh, that's all affordable. The thing is that's beginning to change. Our growth control measure has been sunsetted and we've lost that capacity, but we've still been able to get close to achieving our RENA numbers. Our staff is dedicated to the homeless issue. And in fact, we've just secured a capacity building grant from Destination Home to hire an unhoused specialist and to prioritize and facilitate the creation of ELI units. So we're going to continue to do what we can here in Morgan Hill. And then I would continue that to into the county, because I think that is something that can really work, making sure that we don't stigmatize affordability.
Thank you. Claudia?
The county has a tremendous power to convene across city boundaries. And assuming that the convening power that county has would be one way to bring communities together with the populations that are affected by this housing crisis. One of the things that I would like to do is convene the Essential Workers Council to meet with members of the community so that people realize that the unhoused are people who are caregivers. They're fast food workers. They work at our grocery stores. They are the working poor that are one paycheck away from becoming homeless. They are the students that are attending Gavilan but sleeping in their cars. So I think that connecting community to the faces of our unhoused brothers and sisters is a powerful tool to bring to coalesce around addressing this housing crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 4. Housing policy has been rooted in systemic racism at every level of government. For example, discriminatory lending practices and exclusionary zoning. We see the harmful effects of past and current policies disproportionately impacting people of color. For example, segregation, limited housing choices, and lack of opportunity. In order to dismantle segregation, close the racial wealth gap, and address the disproportionate housing instability of the BIPOC community, what housing policies would you prioritize? Rich?
Thank you. You know, every city has a housing element report, which is a chapter of our general plan. It's our 8-year work plan and our commitment to the community and to the state. It's filled with housing goals, policies, and action items. All cities in the Santa Clara County are in the middle of updating this document right now. This document has a lot of teeth. Because of this, the state will hold cities accountable to making sure that we are doing everything we can in the next 8 years to provide and implement these plans, especially because of the unfunded nature of this. We have to work a lot harder to raise, and we have to rise to the occasion. Morgan Hill is the least receiving tax agency, and yet we are making good progress. So it can be done countywide. And sorry about that. And I just lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Thank you, Rich. Sylvia?
Thank you. I'm really proud to say that I'm one of 5 council members that has really fought hard to adopt anti-racist, equity-based policies that dismantle segregation. And that includes policies that address the encouragement of development of affordable housing in high resource neighborhoods. Usually we see them very much in District 7 and District 5. And we want to make sure that we see them throughout the whole city. So we need to make sure that we have steps to ensure that there's land use reforms that include affluent communities as well as poor ones. I also think the housing siting policy is another great place to adopt policies that would continue to prioritize anti-racist housing policies. And, you know, we've seen Palo Alto, how they have used SB 9 to continue to segregate, and really it's been documented even in books, so we need to make sure we address.
Thank you. Claudia?
I think we need to acknowledge that the banking system has been the perpetrator of redlining practices that have victimized communities of color. And I am a very passionate proponent of exploring a public bank. And as we know, public banks are owned and managed by government entities in order to leverage funds to really provide our community with access to capital so that they can own their own home. And it's something that is long overdue in Santa Clara County. Public bank would also support minority-owned business development within our community to address the economic challenges of people who want to start their own business but lack access to capital. And I think a lot of the issues that involve redlining are perpetrated by the often predatory banking system. Thank you.
Thank you. Denelle?
Hi, thank you. I think there's a few different things I'd like to touch on. One is as a case manager for Life Steps, we administer the self-sufficiency program. So all of the people that I work with have Section 8 housing vouchers, and I'm a big fan and supporter of the voucher system. I think it's very healthy, and it allows people to choose where they want to live. There's no more discrimination against Section 8 housing vouchers. So I think that's one issue that I think we should do more of. I'm also a realtor. I have my real estate license. I've had it for a year. So I'm very supportive of the pathway to home ownership. And I also think that we need to invest in distressed areas and not be a hand down, but be a hand up. And so I'm very supportive of first-time buyer options, et cetera. And I also think it's really important that we educate people. And I do that with the clients I work with. What does home ownership mean? You know, what does it mean to save money? What is equity? So I think informing and providing those resources are important.
Thank you all. Question number 5. We know that it is easier to keep people housed now than to rehouse them if they fall into homelessness. The pandemic has shined a light on housing insecurity and the sheer number of local residents who are at risk of losing their homes, especially those from communities of color. What can the county do to prevent displacement? And as a supervisor, what protections would you propose and or support to ensure that vulnerable tenants stay housed and in Santa Clara County? Denelle?
Thank you. A reoccurring theme for me in my responses will be that I really do support the Section 8 housing voucher program. I think that it's important. It's very helpful for people because they pay a portion of the rent and then the rest is paid for them so that they can stay housed. And we see many people being able to stay in place because of this program. I also think that it's important if people are getting to the point where they might face eviction, that we have programs at the county where they can respond to and talk to somebody about what they need to do so that doesn't happen. Sometimes people need education on how to budget their money. We can't ignore that. We also need to make sure that we have programs in place and that help, people pay their rent if they're can't pay it for a few months, so that they're not evicted and they can get back on their feet. So sometimes people just need temporary help, and we need to make sure that we're there for that as well.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you. And now I got my thought back, because this is very similar to question 4. Our housing element, which I haven't seen yet, but I know it must include AB 686, which is the affirmative furthering. I wrote it down here. It's the Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Act. And what that does is it prohibits discrimination based on race, religion, national origin, sex, family status, and disability. We have to take a step further and explicitly include how we will combat decades of systemic racism. The AB 686 was a federal act of Congress from 1968 originally, but now, newer in California, it is even stronger. So that is something that I will use as a tool to not only help people of color, but that are disadvantaged from getting housing, but it'll also help bring up people that have low economic income, such as our ELI community.
Thank you. Claudia?
The county, I think, has really utilized a lot of effective strategies. Obviously, we need to do more, but among them is the partnership with Destination Home, whereby families that are at risk of becoming homeless receive assistance to remain in their homes. And that program has demonstrated to be over 93% effective in helping families avoid homelessness. We know that over 600 families become homeless every year. And once there is homelessness, the mental health precipitously drops. So that's one program that I would continue to support. But I also have to ask that we address the economic conditions of people who work for corporations that do not pay a living wage and that also inflict wage theft on the working poor. That's also an area of focus that we need to look at.
Thank you. Sylvia?
Thank you. Just yesterday at council, I voted on a $29 million expenditure plan, and this is for homeless housing assistance and prevention programs. And so I'm really proud of that, and we need to continue to do that. As well as in the past, I've been one of the cohort that has approved the first real rent control ordinances that our citizens have seen here, our residents have seen, and tenant protection ordinance, and so including LSAC. So I'm really proud of that. We just need to continue to make sure that we partner with the systems that also provide assistance and that we are coordinating really well. I believe we are already doing that with the county, and so all the cities need to move in the same direction. We need to make sure that the providers have a capacity. We're starting to see that providers are really spent and facing a capacity crisis. And so we need to make sure that we also support them.
Thank you. For our next question, we're going to turn to one of tonight's co-hosts, Housing Choices. Jan Stokely, Executive Director at Housing Choices, will ask the question. Jan?
Thank you. Candidates, in 2018, Santa Clara County, home of the former Agnews Developmental Center for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, became the first county in California to create a local housing finance program to facilitate the inclusion of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and typical affordable housing. As the $40 million that was appropriated for that program is exhausted and the program comes to an end in 2023, what steps will you take to renew and expand opportunities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to live inclusively in typical affordable housing?
Thank you very much, Jan. Claudia?
Thank you so much. As someone who has served as a trustee in the school community, I see the struggles of so many of our special needs students, and I often worry about their prospects as they age out of the school system. So passionate advocacy in every way that I can as a supervisor, as an elected leader that cares deeply for those brothers and sisters that have these disabilities. I will do what I can to advocate, to join coalition, to advocate for this to be extended. It's a real need in our community, and I'm very grateful for the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Denelle?
Thank you. I too am very supportive. As a former rape crisis counselor, I worked with people at some of the worst times of their life, and those folks are vulnerable, and there's so many vulnerable communities that need the county's support. So I too would be supportive of extending funding for the most vulnerable. I think that I would add also too, though, is that I would like to make sure I am very much a fiscal conservative, and I am not afraid to share that I think without fiscal health and fiscal accountability, that we're not able to help anybody, right? Even in our own homes, we have to be fiscally sound to provide for our families. So I would want to make sure that we audit these monies to make sure they are reaching those who need them most. Because that's always important to do. We don't want any of the money that is supposed to go to those folks not reaching them.
Thank you. Rich?
Thank you. This is very much needed. We have a project here in Morgan Hill called the Jasmine Square by Eden Housing that has a handful of these units, but everyone could do more. People with cognitive, intellectual, social disabilities need to be explicitly included as we develop housing. This is not a homeless housing. This is preventive housing. This is prevention housing, I should say. It would be great for everyone to develop the most of some of these units. And again, these are also ELI units. Solving many of these issues circles back to the creation of ELI units, and so many of our residents, intellectual development disabled, is included in that. Right now, affordable projects are roughly around 15% of dedicated to physically disabled as a result of the state tax credit requirements. And we are talking about intellectually disabled also needing to be factored into our work. As a firefighter, I've seen people that need to have this help firsthand. My time is up.
Thank you. Sylvia?
Thank you. I worked for First Five for 10 years, and we focused on early childhood, and I got to see a lot of children helped that had intellectual and developmental disabilities, but we tend to forget when they get older and they're adults and they're living on their own. And so I applaud Joe Smidian and the Board of Supervisors for dedicating that $40 million from their general county funds to support the inclusion of people with developmental disabilities in affordable housing. I would strongly support renewing this commitment when this program is exhausted, and would continue to support doing it with funding outside of Measure A. I'm glad that they didn't pit one very good cause with another. This is cost effective, but most importantly, it's the right thing to do for our families.
Thank you all. Question number 7. South County has a significant agricultural workforce that faces significant housing instability, including rent burden, overcrowding, and poor housing conditions. How do you plan to address the housing needs of agricultural workers and their families in South County? Denelle?
So my dad's family is Hungarian immigrants, and they were farmers back east. And we lived on an almond orchard when I was young, and we had a family farm after the almond orchard, and it's a lot of work, and it never ends. And I just think that the farm workers are doing God's work because they provide for our food and for our well-being, and I don't think people realize how much work they do. I think that clean, healthy housing for everybody is a priority, and I would want to bring the farm workers to, I'm a big fan of community meetings, and see what they want. What is it that they're looking for? What is it that they need? I also think it's important to bring the property owners who employ the farm workers. Maybe we can have ADUs or some type of temporary housing on site. I also think we need to look at making it easier to provide housing in getting rid of the fees and the high cost of doing that.
Thank you. Sylvia?
My father was a bracero, and so that's how he naturalized into this country. And so he would follow the seasons up and down California. I know how it is, what it is to live poor in this county, and what it does to families. And so I want to make sure that I work with those families to gather their input, to hear what their ideas are. Also to take a look at that agricultural plan that I know isn't funded just yet, and work with those farmers and local food production groups to take a look at the long-term viability of local farming, because that's important for those folks who rely on that. We also need to take a look at just really affordable housing funding to support projects specifically for workers, the same way we do for teachers.
Thank you. Rich?
Thank you. You know, as I mentioned earlier, Morgan Hill per capita has more affordable housing than any city in Northern California. But we took it a step further with a project just recently approved by the County Board of Supervisors, which was our Royal Oaks Village, which is a 73-unit affordable housing project that has, I won't quote the number because I don't remember it offhand, but it has specific amount of those units put aside specifically for farm workers and their families. You know, it's very hard for people that have low income to find housing in this area, but the farm workers have it even harder. And we've started to address that issue, partly because right here in South County, we're kind of the epicenter of farming in our entire county. So we have that in our backyard. So we've taken the steps here in Morgan Hill to provide for not only people of low income, but also for our farm workers. And this is something that we are very proud to have partnered with the county. We used $9 million of a Measure A fund, and this can happen again. We can continue doing this with other cities.
Thank you. Claudia?
I'm very proud to be a registered nurse that works here in South County with our farm worker community. And one of the shocking things that a lot of people don't realize is that so many workers live in homes that don't have a kitchen and that don't have those amenities. They're reminiscent of the slave quarters. And I'll say that as a Latina because I see it every day, their living conditions. The ag plan that was developed by the Open Space Authority does call for farm worker housing, but I will be very vigilant to make sure that that housing really serves our community so they could live in dignity. I know that there was a developer that was proposing building housing without kitchens, just kind of make it like a large dorm. And so I will be very, I will champion the dignity of people who work for the farm worker industry. Thank you.
Thank you all. Our last few questions are rapid fire. Each candidate has been asked to keep their answers as short as possible, no more than 5 seconds. Single word answers are what we are hoping for. Question 1. Santa Clara County owns a significant amount of land around the county, including the county fairgrounds. Would you support prioritizing this potentially surplus land for affordable housing? Sylvia?
Only if it reduces segregation instead of furthering it.
Thank you. Rich?
Unmute. We can't hear you, Rich.
Thank you, Claudia. Sorry about that.
Time's up, Rich.
Am I still on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't say possibly because of the fact that we tend to put poor people in areas where other people wouldn't want to live. I mean, look at redlining as an example.
Thank you. Claudia?
There is a proposal that will call for using part of it, which I do support. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. Denelle?
I support mixed use, which includes housing, healthcare, recreation, and emergency services, because affordable housing deserves amenities too.
Thank you all. Question 2. Do you support the Santa Clara County Community Plan to end homelessness? Claudia?
Absolutely.
Rich?
Yes, we adopted it here in Morgan Hill.
Denelle?
Yes, and care court.
Sylvia?
Absolutely.
Thank you all. Question 3. Some people have argued that if some sort of shelter is available, then unhoused people should be forced to take it, which raises practical, ethical, and legal questions. Would you support forcing people to move into shelters? Denelle?
To some extent, yes, and I do support care court, which has a part of that element to it.
Sylvia?
Absolutely not. We need to have compassionate housing solutions.
Claudia?
Laura's law provides for being able to help people who cannot ask for help. That needs to be very carefully administered. So yes, but with extreme reservation.
Rich?
No.
Thank you all. Question 4. California's new law, SB 9, requires cities and counties to allow 2 to 4 homes on properties previously restricted to a single house. Local jurisdictions have flexibility in how SB 9 is implemented. Do you support county rules that make it easier for homeowners to take advantage of SB 9? Rich?
Yes.
Claudia?
Yes, it's one of many tools and we can't rule that one out.
No,
Denelle?
I don't. It doesn't create affordable housing, and it has the potential to destroy neighborhoods.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Thank you all. Question 5. In general, should Santa Clara County support state actions that hold all cities, including Silicon Valley's smaller, more exclusive communities, accountable to allow and build more homes? Sylvia?
Affluent cities have to be held accountable, and we must dismantle segregation. So yes.
Denelle?
No, I do not support state interference, but I do think that we should encourage small cities to do their fair share.
Rich?
It's already being done with SB 330. So yes, I mean, Morgan Hill, we've got 2,700 units in the pipeline. Around just over 500 of those units are affordable.
Claudia?
I support making sure that every city contributes to the solution of this crisis. So yes, but I also think we need to build coalition.
Thank you. Final question. Measure A has been a tremendous success in building affordable housing throughout the county, but the remaining funds are mostly dedicated at this point. Would you support a new countywide or regional bond for affordable housing? Claudia?
I would support a bond, and the voters would make the ultimate decision, but I would. Thank you.
Rich?
Yes, and the voters have already said that they would be supported, so I'm sure they would have again.
Denelle?
I supported the current Measure A, but I would want an audit done first to make sure that we use the money the way we said we were going to use it, and we're not overspending, so that we reach those that we need it to reach those the most.
Thank you. Sylvia?
It needs to be part of a larger package of reforms, and yes.
Thank you. Thank you all. Now, to make their final pitch, each candidate will share a 1-minute closing statement. We will start off with Sylvia.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation and for allowing us to share some of our thoughts around housing and how important housing is, not only to our communities, but to the district that we're hoping to represent. I have experience in developing policies. I have experience in collaborating across different municipalities, exclusively with the county. And so I've had countywide policies in terms of developing. And I also have a master's in public administration. And so I have the heart, the experience, the education, and I hope to serve you.
Thank you. Rich?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. As I've stated throughout this evening, I'm very proud of the accomplishments that Morgan Hill has made, not only for providing housing, but of providing affordable housing. Again, we are leading that effort, but it's sad that a city our size has to lead that effort. I think the state has made great strides in trying to provide for affordable housing, but not giving cities the opportunity to get any kind of funding. I think we need a new redevelopment agency. I think that's something that needs to be looked at. But I am also proud of the commitment that the county has made. When we talked about Measure A and how Morgan Hill has availed itself of $9 million of funding for a project right here. These are things that can be replicated. These are things that can be done throughout our entire county. We have 15 cities in this county. If we do things 15 different ways, we're not gonna see results. We're not gonna make a dent in the unhoused issue. So that is something that we can do together.
Thank you. Denelle?
Thank you. I want to say thank you, Gabriel, and to my fellow competitors. It's been good to see you again, and thank you for having this forum. And to all the nonprofits that were listed earlier and doing all the good work, thank you as well. I am a Republican. I think that fiscal health, accountability, and responsibility are paramount so that the county can reach those who need help the most, that we can continue with the great programs that we've been known for. And so my goal will be that we, if elected, that we really look at making sure that the funding that we have is audited and that it is reaching those who need it most. I support affordable housing. I support the affordable housing that was where the former Aloha roller rink used to be. And I support affordable housing through mixed use so that it's not just housing, but that affordable housing has amenities as well, because everybody's deserving of those. Thank you.
Claudia?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am very proud to have chosen as a registered nurse to work with our unhoused communities, our migrant communities, victims of domestic violence, to be a nurse that every day helps her patients navigate the complex county systems that I hope to someday lead and support as a county supervisor, hopefully with your support. I'm very proud that I have the endorsements of Dolores Huerta, Dave Cortese, Jim Bell, and others that know the work of county. The county spends almost 60% of its $9 billion budget on healthcare. It runs the largest healthcare delivery system in all of Northern California. It is the contribution of a registered nurse that chose to work with the most underserved communities that will make the most difference at this time as we build through and past this pandemic. I ask for your support and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you all very much. That concludes the candidate portion of this forum. Thank you to each of the candidates for your thoughtful responses to some difficult questions and for abiding by the forum's rules. Recordings of this forum will be posted online to the Silicon Valley at Home Action Fund's YouTube page. Before we sign off, Regina Celestin Williams, Executive Director of Silicon Valley's At Home and the Silicon Valley at Home Action Fund, has some important words.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our moderator, Gabriel Greschler. Thank you to all of you for participating, for all of you being here tonight. We are putting up a very simple 3-question poll, and we'd like to ask you to fill it out at this moment. We hope this forum has helped you learn about housing issues and the candidates and helped you be more informed as a voter. Thank you again to our moderator, and thank you to our candidates. We really appreciate the respectful conversation that we were able to have tonight. And thank you to our interpreters. We really couldn't have these events without you all. Thank you to all of our co-sponsors. We appreciate all of you who are working in and for the community, helping us reach more voters on such critical issues as housing. This is our last of our series of 5 forums this spring. So we invite you to view the videos of the other forums that we've done in the past on the SV at Home Action Fund's website or on our YouTube page. And I appreciate you all for sharing the space with us and doing so respectfully. Thank you all again and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Have a good night, everyone.